To the proceedings today. I'm Dr. Susan Otuokan, and I am going to, though, just invite Professor Tanisha Stevenson, the Deputy Dean for the Faculty of Science and Technology here at Mona, to come to the podium. The microphone is right there. Please go ahead and do the welcome for me.
You can put your hands together as you Oh, you're too kind, ladies and gentlemen. You're just too kind. Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Donna. On behalf of our Dean, Professor Michael Taylor, and the faculty fraternity, I welcome you to the launch of the FIWI Science Initiative, a celebration of Jamaica's science heritage and culture. We acknowledge this afternoon Dr. Tomlin Paul, Deputy Principal. We are anticipating Sir Archie, Deputy Registrar, and the Deputy Bursar, Miss Jacqueline McLean. Professor Sampson Omoregi, Dean of the Faculty of Science and Sport, UTech Jamaica. Allow me to acknowledge again our own Dean, Professor Michael Taylor. Professor Emeritus Ronald Young, former PVC Graduate Studies and former Dean of our faculty. Good to see you, sir. Mrs. Margaret Bernal, Arts Jamaica. Dr. Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited, Environmental Science and Technology Limited. Our chair, Dr. Susan Otuokan. Deans representatives, heads of department, ministry representatives, specially invited guests, welcome and thank you for joining us for this launch. Allow me to also acknowledge the Inter-American Development Bank who provided seed funding to this effort, and I would invite you to just put your hands together as we thank and acknowledge the bank for their commitment to this effort. Quite often we're met with a recognition of Jamaica's prowess in sports, in music, in the performing arts, in the visual arts, and other areas, but seldom for science, though we have a rich science legacy that has been integral to our country's development. FIWI Science draws attention to this part of our heritage, part of our culture. And so this aims to popularize Jamaica's science heritage and culture through three main components: the FIWI Science Portal, the 75 Years of Jamaica Science, the UA book, and the Jamaica Interactive Science Mural. Today, our colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear about the FIWI Science Portal and the Jamaica Interactive Science Mural competition and its launch. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy this launch with us.
Thank you so much for that very warm welcome, Prof. Tanisha. We appreciate it. And now I'm going to run smoothly ahead to invite Dr. Tomlin Paul, our Deputy Principal, to the podium. And we really appreciate your participating this afternoon. I know you had to change up a couple of things to squeeze us in, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Professor Tanisha Stevenson, Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology. Professor Michael Taylor, Dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology. Dr. Isaac Morrison, Director of Research, National Commission on Science and Technology. Mrs. Margaret Bernal, who is here on the arts, in the area of arts. Dr. Susan Otuokan, Strategic Development Officer, and our lead chair. Dr. Conrad Douglas, I understand a big supporter of not only science, but the faculty here from Conrad Douglas and Associates. And Professor Ronnie Young, Professor Emeritus and former Dean of the faculty and Pro-Vice Chancellor. Other distinguished guests, members of the university community, our campus community who are here, members of the students and student leadership. I suppose we'd have some students here also. And all of us here who are celebrating science this afternoon, good afternoon and welcome. It's a privilege to greet you and to bring remarks on behalf of the campus administration. Our principal, Professor Denzel Williams, is out on the Western Jamaica campus and is unable to join us, but he sends his congratulations and blessings on this initiative. When I first got this invitation and I saw the caption in my email, I thought it was coming from Dean Cohenberg in the Faculty of Humanities and Education. From FHE. I say FUE. And then I realized it was from Dean Taylor. I know Professor Taylor to be a man of many talents, many achievements, but I didn't realize he used Jamaican Creole so well to have crafted and developed a FUE initiative. But in all seriousness, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not surprised, as we have seen the excellent kind of collaborations and partnerships that the Faculty of Science and Technology has been taking on over the years. We know of the STEM Educators program, the collaboration between FHE, Humanities, and FST, the building out our STEM teachers, the BOOST program. And so this is a faculty indeed that is innovative and progressive. And today we are looking at this partnership, work being done between the faculty in collaboration with private sector, Conrad Douglas and Associates, support from the public sector. We heard the IIDB has given support to this. And this work in an effort to reclaim and celebrate and promote Jamaica's scientific culture. Colleagues, science is like music and art. It's like literature. It's an essential part of our identity. Yet too often it is overshadowed in our collective consciousness. The Faculty of Science and Technology has taken the bold step today to ensure that the legacy of our scientific pioneers is not lost to history, but instead is a beacon for current and future generations. The culture of science is universal, and I know we do think we have culture, we think a lot about arts and so on. But the culture of science is universal, and it transcends geographical boundaries and disciplinary boundaries. Scientists across the world adhere to values of integrity, curiosity, and relentless pursuit of truth, knowledge and truth. We have to say knowledge, but these days I hear knowledge is all kind of, there's fake and all kinds of different kinds of knowledge, but we're talking about truth. That's what we want to stick with, yeah? But this science is not merely a tool for economic advancement or technological innovation. We think a lot about that, and there's a place for that. In fact, there's a primary sort of value proposition of science helping with development across the board, national development and so on, and innovation. But indeed, it is like poetry and philosophy, an intellectual pursuit that enriches our understanding of the world. As Miss Lou reminded us, Miss Lou, our great Miss Lou, reminds us, rain a fall, but dirty tough, pot a boil, but food not enough. Prof, you think it's your own could do for we? But Miss Lou's words, her words, though grounded in social reality, speak to something deeper. The quest to understand, to solve, to create, even when the challenges seem insurmountable. River flood, but water scarce, yeah. Climate change, stuff that we need to relate to and deal with. So science, much like poetry, is an act of resilience, of making sense of the world and finding solutions where none seem to exist. Indeed, it brings hope and expectation to our people. I see this FUE Science initiative as indeed more than a project. It is a movement. Through its diverse sources, this initiative will make the stories of our scientists accessible and inspiring by embedding these narratives in the very fabric of our academic spaces. And through this, we send a powerful message to our students that science is not foreign to us. It is Jamaican, it is Caribbean. So as I close, I want to say at the UWI Mona, We are committed to fostering a learning environment, a curriculum and a learning environment that transcends rigid academic boundaries. Science must not be confined to laboratories and lecture halls. It must engage with society. We must have that engagement in a deep way with society. It must inspire creativity. It must drive solutions of our national and regional challenges. Initiatives like this align perfectly with the campus's vision, and this is a vision that we are actively promoting, with our vision for a modern, interdisciplinary, and socially responsive university. On behalf of the administration, I congratulate the faculty, Dean Taylor, and your team for this very timely and much needed initiative. And I thank you, our partners, Dr. Douglas, the IIDB, other members here who have contributed to this initiative and who have worked to make today's launch a success. So as we celebrate this launch, let us all commit to amplifying Jamaica's scientific legacy. Let us ensure that our youth see themselves reflected in the world of STEM, not just as students, but as future innovators, thought leaders, and problem solvers. Science is not just a profession, it's a culture. And today we affirm that it is a culture that we proudly own. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Paul, for those very timely words. I am going to invite Dr. Isaac Morrison, Director of Research with the National Commission on Science and Technology, to take the podium and bring greetings. And I'll just apologize on behalf of Dr. Natwain Gordon from the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications, and Transport, whom I believe he's representing.
Thank you, Dr. Tuakon. Good afternoon, everyone. Deputy Principal, Dr. Paul, of the University of the West Indies Mona campus, Professor Michael Taylor, Dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology, and his organizing committee, Ms. Margaret Bernal. Ladies and gentlemen, students, good afternoon. On behalf of the National Commission on Science and Technology, NCST, I extend our warm congratulations to the Faculty of Science and Technology, particularly to Dean Professor Michael Taylor and his committee for bringing the FUI Science Initiative to life. As you may know, the NCST is the government agency tasked with advancing Jamaica's science and technology landscape by working with the private sector, research institutions, and government agencies. One of our key mandates is to promote the importance of science, technology, and innovation in Jamaica's development. The FUI Science Initiative, designed to inspire the next generation of scientists, aligns perfectly with the goals and objectives of the National Science, Technology, and Innovation Policy. This policy highlights various impactful strategies through which all Jamaicans, both locally and in the diaspora, can enhance the socio-economic well-being of the nation by integrating science, technology, and innovation into everyday life. By showcasing images of renowned Jamaican scientists and their major accomplishments, students will feel that science is more accessible and relatable. This initiative will allow students to see scientists who look like them, people they can identify with. This representation is a powerful psychological boost and an important tool in innovation. We hope that as students walk along these corridors, they will feel a connection to the great minds who came before them and be inspired to envision themselves as future great scientists. No matter where they pursue their tertiary education, we hope they will carry with them the images of these brilliant and innovative role models and the belief in their own potential to create a brighter future. So, the NCST hopefully supports the FUI Science Initiative, and we are grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this journey. Thank you to the organizers for inviting us to participate in this exciting and impactful project. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing the lasting impact of this initiative on our future scientists. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Most appreciated, and we look forward to further participation with the ministry and with the NCST. And I don't know if there's anybody here from the Scientific Research Council. Okay, great to see you. Right. Because part of the mandate of the ministry and its agencies is to promote science and our scientists. So we definitely want to partner with them. And so with that, I'm going to invite our very own Dean, Professor Michael Taylor, to share with us an overview of the FIWI Science Initiative. Let's welcome him.
With all protocols observed, good afternoon. So this afternoon, I was asked to give a little bit of an overview of and motivation for the FIWI Science Initiative. Thought of doing a PowerPoint presentation, but then I said, I need to pay homage to the spirit of the occasion. And so I decided to use spoken word. If I fail, you know we need the marriage between arts and science. All right? But here goes. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a dream. I dream that one day a little Jamaican girl named Maya will walk the streets of Kingston on a culture tour, her young mind eagerly soaking in the spirit of her homeland as she pauses at National Heroes Park, where towering monuments stand in silent testimony to bravery, sacrifice, and the unyielding fight for freedom. I have a dream that she will pocket the inspiration gained there like a sacred keepsake and carry it with her to Water Lane, where murals burst with the rhythm of reggae, the poetry of Miss Lou, and the soul of a people, and evoke feelings in her which she struggles to contain. In my dream, Maya, giddy with emotions, will be further buoyed with pride when at her next stop, the National Stadium, she stands in the shadow of giants, Bob Marley at the front gate, and inside our sprinters, our champions, whose lightning speed and priceless willpower have etched Jamaica's name into history. And then, in my dream, Maya will take a path less traveled. She will make her way to the University of the West Indies, where she will stop in front of a towering, vibrant tribute to the Jamaican scientist. Larger-than-life figures immortalized in color and light will whisper in her ear. She will gaze at the faces of T.P. Lecky or Manly West or Henry Lowe or Raymond Wright or Gerald Laylo or Arnaldo Ventura or Anthony Chen or so many others whose minds shaped nations and whose discoveries changed lives. And in that moment, she will know. Just as the musician knows the power of a song, just as the athlete knows the fire of the race, just as the poet knows the lyrical lure of the written word, that she too can shape the future. She too can be great. She too can be a scientist. You see, I have a dream that Maya will never grow up believing that science and art are separate worlds, one bound by numbers, the other by imagination. Rather, she will know them as kindred spirits, both driven by curiosity and the need to explore and push boundaries and tell untold stories. I have a dream that Maya will not have to search through forgotten pages or obscure websites to find Jamaican scientific legacy. Rather, she will see it celebrated, woven into the very fabric of her country, displayed boldly, etched into books, and alive in the world around her. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been dreaming, but now I have woken up. I have woken up to the reality that Jamaica has a rich scientific legacy which has far too long been unrecognized and overlooked. We have made unbelievable strides in medicine, agriculture, environmental science, engineering, technology, and been the place where development of life-saving drugs, advances in tropical agriculture, and groundbreaking research in climate science has occurred. Yet, There is no national monument dedicated to our scientific pioneers, no iconic structure that tells the story of our contributions to global science knowledge, no odes to scientific legacy in our halls of culture, and most troubling, yes, most troubling of all, nowhere for Jamaican students searching for STEM role models to look, forcing them to go beyond our country to find inspiration. We must change this narrative. But in my now awakened state, I also have hope that we can. I have hope because Jamaica was last year declared a STEM island, a country committed to leveraging STEM to drive economic growth, innovation, and social transformation. So it was said. I have hope because against the backdrop of this proclamation, I am confident it will dawn sooner than later that to make it a reality, policy declarations and investments will have to be complemented by a new ethos which cultivates a national STEM identity. The STEM island will quickly come into being when Jamaicans, especially our young people, can see themselves reflected in the story of scientific progress and can easily locate the brilliant minds of our past and present. And this is where FIWI Science begins. FIWI Science is the UWI's commitment to science popularization. It is about fostering pride in our scientific achievements, showcasing our trailblazing scientists, and introducing new names, the Paula Tennants, Paul Reeses, Mona and Dale Weber, Helen Jacobs, Conrad Douglas, Ronald Young, and I am getting myself into trouble, so I will say no more. The FIWI Science Initiative has three major, as yet not fully funded, hint, hint, planks. Three major planks which will ensure that Jamaica's scientific legacy, prowess, and capacity are known, celebrated, and inspired. Plank number one, the FIWI Science Portal, an interactive online hub that will showcase Jamaican scientists, institutions, and breakthroughs, creating an accessible and dynamic space for engagement. Still in its early stages, it will eventually become the premier platform connecting students, scientists, industry leaders, policymakers, and the general public to FIWI Science. Plank number two, the Jamaica Interactive Science Mural, a visual and digital landmark that will tell the story of our science culture. It will be located in the faculty, at the faculty of the UWI, Faculty of Science and Technology here on the UWI Mona campus. It will feature augmented reality elements for viewers to interact with Jamaica's scientific heritage and also link directly to the FIWI Science Portal. Plank number three, 75 years of Jamaican science, the UWI book, a permanent and comprehensive documentation of the contributions of UWI scientists to independent Jamaica. This publication will highlight UWI's legacy of scientific excellence and innovation that has helped shape national development. So, we start today with the launch of a mural competition and an invitation to Jamaican artists and visionaries to paint the stories of our scientific heroes. I confess that at points in the last 2 years, I feared my dream would end as a nightmare, as ministries, agencies, companies, and institutions who have had the FIWI Science proposal fail to respond to our emails. But thanks to an amazing team that has come on board, you will hear about them. Thanks to those who provided the seed funding, and thanks to a faculty that did not abandon its dreaming dean, we have today made a start. We are fully confident that the flood of phone calls of support and cooperation will follow after today's event. So I close where I started. I have a dream, and I want you to have it too. The dream that one day, young Maya will not have to search for evidence of a Jamaican science culture, will not have to wonder if Jamaica values scientists the way it values musicians, athletes, and leaders. In my dream, she knows that it does. For she sees it in the mural, she finds it in the FIWI Science Portal, and she reads it in the UWI book, and she is inspired. Today, we take the first step in ensuring that science becomes an indelible part of Jamaica's cultural landscape. Let us create, let us celebrate, let us elevate Fiwi science. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We are introduced to a new talent, and we are seeing STEAM in action because we have the art here as part of the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So I don't know if Prof. Taylor, you know that my first grandchild's name is Mayo? So I was really deeply touched, and I don't think he knew that at all. So yeah, it really touched my heart, and I'm sure each of you, and we really do invite you to participate and come on the journey with us. And to help us do that, I am going to share now a Vimeo that was produced by Mrs. Margaret Bernal. Oops, I don't need you to do that. And she is here afterwards for the rest of the evening if you want to ask questions. But we're hoping that this little video will just, connect everything for you before I present on some of the actual items Prof. Taylor spoke about. So here we go.
Fiwi Science. The initiative of the West Indies offers a welcome opportunity for a further consolidation of the interrelationships between science and the arts across our region, which is a particularly rich one. It also reflects that growing consciousness of how transformative presentations by visual and creative artists can be in bringing hidden histories to light. These lay the way for new business opportunities and nurture and support creative careers for our young. The telling of the story of our pioneering scientists, many of them very little known, is a sterling opportunity to celebrate both the rich oral and written traditions of Jamaica, which underscore the long foundation of folk and traditional knowledge across our communities, and look also to a brighter shared future. Jamaica's earliest scientist was just brought to light in a portrait discovered after lying dormant for nearly 300 years. Francis Williams, 1690 to 1762, Jamaica's genius scientist. He was a polymath, born in enslavement, but moved on to study at Cambridge University as a boy of 22. He endured ridicule and prejudice and was rejected when he was proposed into membership of the prestigious Royal Society. The reason given, on account of his complexion. Undeterred, Williams went on to gain world-class rankings as an outstanding scholar, ranking beside elites in the world in areas of English, Latin, history, medicine, architecture, poetry, philosophy, geography, science, and astrology. Graduating from Cambridge, he returned to his home in Spanish Town, where a long-lost portrait of him in his study depicts the moment of his successful calculation of the trajectory and the return of the famous Halley's Comet in 1759. The comet is seen through the window of his study at Frog Hall. This work, an outstanding artwork and portrait, underscores that the tradition of Jamaica in science and technology is early rooted and continues to this day. It has only to be unearthed and celebrated. Similarly too, the exploits of another early scientist a century later, Mary Seacole, 1804 to 1881, an extraordinary doctress, brought yet another Jamaican to world prominence. Whether it was her audacity in performing autopsies in Panama to detect and treat the ravages of cholera, or her heroism in the Crimean War in the 1850s, when she became a recognizable, welcomed figure on the battlefield, carrying her healing balms and nourishing portions of hominy corn to soldiers, enemy and British alike. The traditions of outstanding scientists have continued with an ongoing litany of names, and this initiative seeks to make more household, more recognizable, particularly to our young. The honor roll of scientists. The tales of scientific advances in a wide variety of fields can serve to inspire scholarship in new and pioneering areas, as well as to build the scientific and research community on the Mona campus and the UWI across the Caribbean. This initiative will see an alliance with the visual arts community, particularly in mural storytelling and depicting the tales and stories of scientists through the ages as they share their exploits in a wide range of pioneering fields. It is hoped that before the buildings of this campus and this faculty are gradually transformed into an art walk with murals and installations and multimedia exhibitions, that this particular space will become an accessible teaching facility, both formally and informally, making it a space of enlightenment on the UWI's first campus at Mona, Jamaica.
Thank you so very much, Mrs. Bernal. And I wonder if some of you are wondering about those pieces of pottery towards the end. What did that mean and what could that possibly, those art forms, have to do with science? And I'm looking directly over here to the chemists among us, right? But the clay and what are they called? The glazes and the pigments, all of that are grounded in science. And when you're chatting outside, you ask Margaret or Conrad about it, and you'll hear more. So it's been very interesting for me on this journey as the person who Dean Taylor tasked with this strategic initiative to get Phoebe Science initiative rolling, right? Because he was dreaming and so on, and it was taking some time, especially I think when we found out how much a mural might cost. But what we have done is to get started, and we had some IDB funding, and we got started on a portal by which you can literally, as it says here, jump into Phoebe Science. But before I take you into that, I want to just share a little bit, because of course we are scientists, so we have to figure out, is what is being proposed, does it make sense? Is it really going to help? How do we know that trying to inspire students by having a place where they can see scientists who look like them, is it going to work? We don't know for sure, but what we do know is the research internationally, and of course we're looking to try to do some research here in Jamaica, but internationally, the research is saying that whilst young people are interested, very keen and eager about science, science-related things, they're curious, they're exploring in the primary school years. Once they get to the secondary level and get deeper into the STEM subjects, their interest wanes and they're not so keen to continue any further, certainly not at the tertiary level. And that is an issue for us for many reasons, including for national development. And what they're finding is that it's not simply that STEM subjects are hard. And that, interestingly, was the main thing that people said. I think it was about 54% of a sample in the USA, a survey that was done by Pew. Most people think that it's because STEM subjects are hard. But all the research, I found some from USA, Canada, and Australia, and some from some European countries as well. What is happening is that our scientists, people don't really know very much. Who is a scientist and what do they do? Maybe because there are so many different fields. Also, students don't really have role models, and particularly in Jamaica, Dr. Leo Douglas, our ornithologist at Columbia University, did some work, and he found that when he asked students, what does a scientist look like, they did not look like anybody in this room. And that's a concern. So that is one thing, lack of role models. That was definitely found internationally as a reason. And of course, we know our athletes, our entertainers, and others are their accolades and so on. And the scientists tend to keep a bit quiet and very humble. So we need to do something about that, and this is one way. Those are the key things. We are already doing something here in the faculty about the issues, the challenges of fear of math, and training our teachers. Just recently in this very room, we launched the CAPE workshops for students in lower and upper sixth form, doing a variety of science subjects, and the workshops were repeated in Montego Bay. So we're doing something there, and we also have many other programs that we could talk about. But this one is mainly to address those issues that I mentioned about role models and improving and enhancing the status of scientists and Jamaican science. So art and visual images are very important for us and tell a story. So that is what we want to do with the murals. And I'm going to just share with you a little bit in terms of the launch of the competition. I don't know if there's anybody here from Kingston Creatives. Okay. Well, we will be sending this information. Edna Manley, wonderful. Okay, and National Gallery, yes, we have representation as well. Wonderful. So they were all invited, and we will be using those and other media to get information out to professional muralists and student muralists. But let me share, just scrolling through the call for proposals that has been prepared. So this will go out first thing on Monday morning. Call for proposals, instructions about filling out forms, participating in an information session, a little bit of background, talking about the criteria, must have some type of augmented reality, certainly at a minimum the QR codes, how to submit the different categories, and we have some locations in mind, highly visible. And then we also have, as you walked through the spine and the corridors here, you will have seen that there is a lot of wall space. We could be going at this for decades to come, filling the walls with these images, and we want to encourage our students. So we will be launching, well, we are launching the call for proposals for our mural competition effectively right now, but as I said, the information will go out basically first thing on Monday morning. And we anticipate that muralists, as they have been doing it, has become very popular in Jamaica. And I took a group of students down to the Natural History Museum, and what I noticed where I parked across from the National Library, a mural about Jamaican authors. So, you know, the scientists need to be there as well, especially since we're also authors. So the idea is to let the artists do what the artists do best. They know how to design and put things together. We will have sessions where we invite them in and explain our concept and ideas. They will submit. They know the cost of producing the artwork, how much paint is needed. We have no clue. So let them do that part of it, and then we will select from them. Now, on to the portal or website, because there will be the connection, because of course there's only so much you can say with images, which will be important. But let us, as it says here, jump in to FIWI Science. So that's our landing page, and of course right now we're featuring Francis Williams. But just a quick overview of the homepage, and any suggestions you can make afterwards, they're coming in as we have been sharing this. So first thing is that we have to make sure that this can show properly on the phone screens. So we have, of course, About Us. We have the Science Showcase, finding information on our science icons and upcoming events, and we'll go through that. We have the services section, information on Jamaican scientists, because it's not just about the icons, but all our scientists. And then we have a membership section, which is coming soon. So going to the About Us, of course, we list our goals and missions, and then we explain how we can help you. And one of the ways, and I'm not going to go there right now because sometimes when you click on these links, it causes problems. But I did check it before. It didn't cause a problem, but I'm not going to tempt fate. We have there a frequently asked questions, and that is going to grow. But right now, it answers questions, you know, what does a scientist do? And explaining that just because you did, for example, and I don't know why I'm picking on the chemists, but if you do chemistry, that's a broad field. And you might be someone working in the field, as well as you might be somebody in a lab, or you might be teaching, or a combination of all of those, plus many other things as well. And trying to help students find information about what subjects to do and so on. One of the things that I've been doing is talking to students here, and almost every single one of them has said that because they're good at science, their parents and their teachers, even guidance counselors, are saying that they should do medicine. Now, we all need doctors. My daughter is a medical doctor, but there is much more to science than becoming a medical doctor. And there are so many adjunct things that are necessary for the medical practitioners to do their work. So we need to tell them about, you know, medical physics and biotechnology and so on and so forth. There's another touchy subject in there, which is how much does a scientist earn? And we struggled over this. I'm not totally happy with it as yet, but you know that the government does publish the salary scales, and so we have included some of that information and given them the link so they can go and explore for themselves. Then there's 1-1 COCO to full potential. We have Explore Jamaican Science, Connect with Experts, Support Jamaican Science. And let me start with Support Jamaican Science, because that's an area that we're really building out. I mentioned before, and there's a button to click for membership. This is something we want to develop later on. As we grow the website, as we grow the portal, we would like Jamaican scientists to have their own place, and Caribbean eventually, where they can sign up and be members and post their own information, but also for science enthusiasts, companies, and so on. And we do also hope that that will be one way to kind of help us generate some income to keep it going. So we're thinking about sustainability. Connect with the experts, and we'll come back to this, but that's where we're going to find our scientists. And then explore Jamaican science. So there we'll have our science icons and our events. So let's explore FIWI events. Okay, so here we are in January, and here we are today. We have the launch of the FIWI Science Initiative. So there's our invitation, or if there was a flyer, you would have that invitation, you'd have that information, where it is, and so on. I don't know how many of you knew that. Let me see if the other one has it. I'm not sure why we have two here, but here we go. I don't know how many people knew that the 24th of January was the International Day of Education. And so I was very happy about that, because we're very close to that date. And this is very significant because we believe this is an important educational tool. So we celebrate that UN day. And there are others like that, and as we go along, we will fill in. There's an important thing that's happening here at UE on the 13th and the 14th of February. So you can find out. So you can go along through the different months and identify what is happening, right? So there's our science festival, and it gives you the information and the links if you want to come with your school. So that will build out, and the idea is that over time, we will have other institutions, right? So if the Institute of Jamaica is having something, National Gallery, maybe we should put on there the National Gallery's current major exhibition, the Kingston Biennial, because that does have the Green Times, or is it Green X Gold? Green Times Gold, Green X Gold theme, and so quite significant there. All right, so we also will take a look at our science icons here, but you notice that on the home page, there's always going to be a science icon, someone kind of bigger than life. And remember, we're still building this out. So if you just go to that page and you scroll, you will see various people with various names. Their field is highlighted because you might have an interest based on that. And maybe you would see a lady and say, okay, well, I'm a female and there are so many men. And we're gonna deal with that, Prof. Tanisha, who pointed that out. So here you get some information on Professor Marcia Roy. And what we're trying to do is bring these folks closer to you, as it said on our slogan. So we talk about not just that she has a BSc in this and a PhD in that, but she remembers growing up in South St. Elizabeth, surrounded by bush, which she and her friends explored, like tasting and crushing the berries on paper and seeing different colors appear. And then it goes on about her other feats and engagement. This one I was quite interested, Dr. Bertram Fraser Reed. And somewhere in there, why I got interested is because he went at some point, and from rural Jamaica, then he went at some point to Excelsior High School. But guess what happened now? He was so intrigued with playing the piano, and his father was not happy at all and carted him back off the country and sent him to Clarendon College because he was spending too much time on art. And how is he going to make any money from being a musician? So then, even then, it was still a struggle for him to figure out what he was going to do. And he apparently bought a book, Teach Yourself Chemistry. And it was through reading that he was inspired and decided he was going to study abroad. And then it goes on to tell you a little bit about his research and how that is relevant to life. And he's awarded a Gold Musgrave Medal, and he still, well, he is deceased now, but up until just before he died, it indicates he's an accomplished jazz and classical pianist and organist, and gave recitals around the world, including here in Jamaica. So we want our young people and adults to understand and to relate, because that's an important part of interpretation. I could go on and on. The idea is to search if you know the name, or you can filter according to the different disciplines, right? So you could look that way. Then the other things, and we're still trying to figure out who is an icon and how do you determine who exactly is an icon. But if we go to services, what you'll find there, and there are other ways to link back here, two things that I won't go into. We want to develop these as we go along. Phoebe Yellow, whereby it will kind of be related to the marketplace, but you would be able to go in to, okay, so this one is under construction, but here on the Phoebe Yellow pages, you might be a company, and you can share about what your company does, the science company, and you view the profile, what kind of business is it, and so on, link to your website. Service providers, professional bodies, maybe the Bureau of Standard, NEPA, Forestry, I see here, would be there, because this now is going to, later on, help to generate the income for sustainability, because hopefully companies would have to pay to have this information there, but it's also for young people to begin saying, oh, but that's where I could be working, this institution or that institution. And finally, just then to go back to find a scientist. So you can scroll through, and there are many. I think we are actually doing pretty well here. So there's lots of persons that you can click on and find out more. And once again, also if you want to search by name because you heard of someone before, or you can filter because maybe you are interested in, say, life sciences. I'm interested in plants and animals. Here are the people. And as you see, there are still some gaps there. We're hoping that we will start with the bio, but when we get to the stage where scientists will be able to become members and put their own information in, then they will be the ones to fill that out. So you might have heard a name, and I'll just mention, for example, Dr. Dexter Dean Cahoon, because you're going to hear, I'm looking for him, you're going to hear from, and doing this research is how I found out that he's also a keyboard artist. And so you will hear him and company performing and giving us a little entertainment later on. You might find out about people like Damian White, and somewhere in there I talk about him best known as Rooster, and we need to have a link up here to his IG page so that you can follow him and learn more about plants and animals in a fun way. So we also have scientists abroad, not just scientists here. So Dr. Karen Nelson And, if we can find out what school you went to so that the youth can identify and find relevance. So I think that I'm going to stop there. I think I have given you a feel for what it's about. Let me just check my notes and make sure that I've said everything I need to say. Yes, I think that I have. And so, of course, we're going to be available, Margaret, profs, myself, the team, Conrad Douglas, Margaret Bernal, and Prof. Ron Young, who are the kind of committee behind this, to talk about what you have seen. And I'll probably try to have a laptop outside as well so you can go through yourself. So I hope that has whet your appetite. We do need continued support for the website. I've already started asking different agencies to begin to send me information about the scientists from their organizations. We still need to fill out a lot more. And then you will please look out for the mural competition. And if you know any muralists, please give me their contact information. And so, without further ado, then I'm going to change up a little bit. And I hope Dr. Lilith Nelson, our artistic scientist, or scientific artist, which is it, to come and do a little item to whet your appetite. Later on, we will have music and song outside.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atuakan. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a poem called An Ode to Fiwi Scientists of the 60s at UWI. How about that? How many of you were here in the 60s as students? Oops. Okay. Let me tell you about Fiwi scientists of the 60s at UWI. If them name no ring a bell, me nah make no apology. For long before this faculty did name Science and Technology, from way back in the 60s, in the Faculty of Natural Sciences at Mona, some stalwarts used to guide we. But whether the science was natural, pure, or applied, or intricately woven with technology, as with other disciplines, we walked side by side. Some beacons of light shone oh so bright that of their value to Fiwi science, we never lose sight. There was Ken Magnus, Alfred Sangster, Willie Chang, and Gerald Layla, who made the gap between high school and university smoother. So organic, inorganic, and physical chemistry took on new meaning, as from narrow perspectives of science, we were weaning. Carbon chemistry, stereochemistry, and the 3 laws of thermodynamics, and even the perplexing meandering of statistical thermodynamics took their place indelibly in our psyche. So that long after those lecturers taught we continued to learn as we followed their work with admiration, watching them excel in research, teaching, and supervision in areas spanning inorganic, organic, physical, nuclear, and industrial chemistry intervention. Lest it seems like this ode is confined to chemistry, let us not exclude other stalwarts in the faculty. There was George Sidrak, C. Dennis Adams, and Ma Robertson of botany, who etched their mark on physiology, ecology, taxonomy, and marine biology. Ivan Goodbody, a name synonymous with zoology, influenced reef fisheries and management of marine biology. There were others, such as Hunt, Seekings, Chapman, and Bill Bartley. And let us not forget those from physics, mathematics, and geology. as well as those charged with expanding our cosmic widely, enriching our tertiary education further, such as Roy Auger for Development of Civilization, Woodville Marshall for West Indian Literature, and the handsome blue-eyed use of English lecturer. Then, later, our exposure to John J. Figueroa, Aubrey Phillips, Laurie Reed, and one Errol Miller, who took some of us through the paces of education, charging us to continue the legacy for the future, to ensure that Fiwi science is ingrained in we culture.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Lilith Nelson. So that has whet your appetite for a little bit later, and we are in the wrapping up stages. I'm going to invite Dr. Conrad Douglas, and he's the Executive Chair of Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited and Environmental Science and Technology Limited, to share some of his thoughts with us.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, Dr. Susan Otuokon, also the chairman of the Fiwi Science Committee, and we have been working quite consistently over months now to bring us to this particular event. Let me recognize Dr. Paul Tomlin, our Deputy Principal, and beside him, we have Dr. Donna Minot, our Head of Chemistry Department, Professor Tanisha Stevenson, and I owe you an email. I just mentioned our Deputy Dean, Professor Michael Taylor, with whom I've had the privilege to work in the capacity as Chairman of the Climate Change Advisory Committee, the very first one that was established. A lot of foresight was in that, isn't it, Michael? In fact, Jamaica was the fourth country in the world to have established a climate change ministry. And you can imagine the amount of ridicule that we got at the time. What are you wasting time, what you're doing, and so on and so forth. And since that time, we have worked variously on a number of projects. I want to also recognize Dr. Margaret Bernal, and you have opened my mind to quite a number of things in our discussions over these past few months I would not have thought of ordinarily, but I find it to be fun. It's quite hilarious, in fact, and I'll share some of the things that have crossed my mind since that time. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply honored, and I consider it a great privilege that the faculty has invited myself to be a part of the committee, and my companies, Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited and Environmental Science and Technology Limited, to be collaborators in this great initiative. Before I forget, I see our envoy, latest envoy. How are you, Prof? Good to see you, and congratulations. It was well in the making. You certainly have your plate full, piled high with a lot of work to be done. Thank you so much for coming along. I know that you're going to be flying all over the world in a short while. So wherever we see you, we have to be very, very happy that you're here with us sharing. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say that we consider this to be one of the most creative and innovative projects aimed at the popularization of science and technology in Jamaica, and by extension, STEM in general. Over the years, many projects have been carried out and a number of programs with an attempt and an objective to popularize science and technology in Jamaica. The fact is that Fiwi Science is one of the most creative and innovative ones that I have seen. And I believe that the prospect for success is probably greater than the others. I can name quite a number of them. The Scientific Research Council, for example, has been engaged in a number of formal projects. And in fact, it had an education unit dedicated to the popularization of science. And one of the things that it did was to ensure that we had so-called science and technology societies throughout the entire school system in Jamaica. I don't know what has happened to that over the years. I think they're very, very active. I am certain that some of those students who were members of those societies are now practicing scientists. I'm very pleased, for example, to note in a conversation with the present executive director of the Scientific Research Council that she was one of those students who would attend the annual National Conference on Science and Technology. You know, that is a great achievement. And so this program, which is fundamentally aimed at promoting our many great Jamaican scientists and the outstanding contributions that they have made to the advancement of scientific and technological knowledge, innovation, and social and economic development, is of great importance. And I would invite all of us here to support it in as many ways as possible. Although this very brilliant project is aimed at informing and awakening an interest in science, technology, and innovation, and STEM across all age cohorts, it is especially aimed at capturing the interest of our young people in our educational system by illustrating what has been achieved and what is possible in pursuing a career in science, technology, and innovation. More often than not, when asked about a Jamaican scientist, because of his great internationally recognized and acclaimed work, cattle breeder and geneticist, Dr. Thomas Pilecki is the first scientist to be mentioned. However, there are scores, if not hundreds, of great Jamaican scientists who have also made major contributions to science and technology and innovation. Among the objectives of this very important multidimensional project, which has been outlined by Susan and by Prof. Taylor, that we are launching today, is to showcase these scientists and some of their contributions to development through the use of murals throughout the Faculty of Science and Technology. Although the project will begin with the visual arts through murals depicting the relevant information and supported with a dedicated website, which Susan has already described, it will be expanded to include the audio visuals, the performing arts, and the liberal arts in general, and their relationships with science, technology, and innovation. There are many synergies between the sciences and the liberal arts which have been illustrated over the years and which have been mentioned this afternoon in respect of Bert Fraser Reed and also Francis Williams of the 1700s. And I mean, I don't know, although I am a student of the history and philosophy of science, I'm only learning about Francis Williams in the past few months. I didn't know that such a great Jamaican scientist, astronomer, mathematician existed. He was a slave, and he became an owner of slaves. Of course, he was a black man, and he studied at Cambridge. Francis Williams was actually proposed by none other than Sir Isaac Newton himself to become a member of the Royal Society. And he was seconded by none other than Edmund Halley, for whom the Halley Committee is named and for which he calculated precisely when it would pass over Jamaica. But he was resoundingly rejected by the Royal Society for reasons previously explained, okay? Maybe today the same thing would happen, I don't know. So it's been a long time since we have been involved, and we all know the story about how the British Museum of Natural History was formed. And that in itself is a lot that we have to relate to the members of our society. Although the project will begin, I'm reading here, in this regard, one must stress that the universal nature of the sciences will remain of critical importance while avoiding parochialism. The connections between pure science and technology will be illustrated as far as practicable. Science, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, is universal, and this was stressed by our deputy principal in his earlier presentation. And therefore, we do not wish to, at any time, delve into parochialism. And although we will be showcasing our great Jamaican scientists, we will be making the connections as far as practicable. In reflecting on the possibilities for identifying and highlighting the synergies between the sciences and the liberal arts, the realities and the possibilities are seemingly endless. And I stress this because there comes a time when you can see the convergence and the congruence between the liberal arts and sciences in many ways. And I just will name a few of them. What I have found is that there's a lot of fun in this. And we need to bring the lighter side to it as we proceed. And in doing the documentation, we have to inform the entire society, but more so our students, about the great fun part of it. And when we think, for example, about the whole business of our folk songs, and we think about Carmi Akigo Linstead Market. Ladies, would you like to hear a botanist describe that? Carmi Blaya Sapida go a Linstead Market. And of course, our own scientists right here in the faculty have taken that much further along the way. We have Professor Cedric Halsall, who was the very first head of the Department of Chemistry, who did the first work, pioneering work on Aki, hypoglycine alpha-amino beta-glyceric acid. The country was experiencing vomiting sickness at the time. And that was followed up by a student, Prof. Magnus, who discovered monomycin, the very first antibiotic in Jamaica, which was discovered on this very same campus. And then we had a lot of work being done by Clinton Chambers and also John Wright at the Scientific Research Council. And when Aki was banned, the export to the US, we had more recent time Andre Gordon, who did the work to measure accurately hypoglycine in Aki and develop the protocols for its management so that Jamaica could again begin to export Aki to the United States of America. And when we think about cannabis and the great amount of work that has been done in Jamaica and elsewhere in recent time, we see that almost every department in the entire faculty can be involved. And outside of the faculty, the humanities, as our deputy principal told us earlier on. Just think, for example, about Bob Marley's song. I want some kaya now, because the rain is falling. I never thought of it in that light before. And then I reflect and I say, oh, this is tetrahydrocannabinol, and the cannabinoids. And I begin to think about the genetics of the whole thing and the number of strains that we have. And then I think geography and geology and about the soil types and the composition and the mineralogy, Susan, that we've been thinking about. And of course, the micrometeorology and the climatology associated with the whole thing. It is fun and it is exciting. And then we have, of course, Henry Lowe, Lawrence Williams, doing a lot of work in the area. And probably, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we should really be calling high technology. Because that is in fact the great potential that cannabis has to make you very, very high. You know, and then if you're to think about Jamaican folk song and think about vertebrate zoology, think about Sly Mongoose in him gone abroad and Dog Ward and Matches Lane, all of those things, you know, and this long time girl me never see you. Come let me hold your hand. Peel a drunk or sit down. That's ornithology. And if you go further, the entire avifauna is there when you think about chichibud. So, you know, it is amazing and fascinating, all of these relationships and the fun that we can have in teaching our children in so many different ways what might be involved in science and technology. In more recent times, we have been experiencing for too long the war between Ukraine and Russia, for example. And we recently saw where Elon Musk switched off his Starlink when the Ukrainians had lined up one of the Russian ships in Crimea. And so the Ukrainians couldn't hit that naval vessel anymore. And the point I'm making is that this was developed and patented by a famous actress, Heidi Lamar, the method of developing guided missile. And it came about from stereoscopic music, which was developed using some 6 pianos joined together. And so this whole business of the physics of some of the things that we're observing, they're not strange to us here in Jamaica nor in the faculty. Most people would not know nor recognize that the physics department did a lot of work in the Apollo program. And that is why we had established Wireless Road up in Stony Hill, in which they did a lot of work on the ionosphere. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there is so much that is exciting and interesting in this whole business of the popularization of science, in which we are seeking synergies between the liberal arts and the sciences. And I am firmly of the view that this initiative will have the impact that we are seeking, because it is something that is practically unforgettable. And our students, if we present it to them in all the various shapes and forms possible, will find it to be something that will serve them for the rest of their lives. I want to congratulate Prof. Taylor again for this great initiative. It was his idea, I think. We discussed it a few years ago when we participated in the first festival, and I'm pleased to see that it has reached a stage of implementation. In concluding, I'd like to pledge the commitment of our companies to continue to support the program and to wish you every success in its further implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Douglas. We really appreciate your involvement and your commitment to further involvement. And all we are really left to do at this stage, we're all geared up, and Dr. Douglas was even mentioning some of the music that we'll be moving to and singing along with Dr. Lilith and Dr. Dexter and company later on. But all that remains is for me to ask Professor Emeritus Ronald Young to come forward and make some closing remarks and vote of thanks.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful to be here at this time discussing this topic that is so dear to my heart. It is great to see that the Faculty of Science and Technology is embarking on this very wonderful journey, which I hope will go far. Professor Tomlin Paul started us off by drawing the analogy between science, music, art, sports, that these are all human endeavors. These are all things that we do. And science is also a thing that we do. It's a way, like music is a way of expressing our response to the world. Poetry is a way of describing our relationships, our observations, our sensory responses. Science is a way of analyzing the world and describing the world and formulating a way in which we can appreciate it and love it. Just like everything else, it's another human activity. Science is a little different, of course, as is music, as is art, as is poetry. They all have their own ways of analyzing the world. And science's way of analyzing the world is actually to look at the things around us. Look at the peeled jonquil. Look at the slide mongoose. But ask yourself, what are they doing? How are they functioning? How do they relate to each other in terms of their function? How can I understand the relationships between these things that are around me? And developing not images necessarily, but yes, images of a different sort. Images of hypotheses as to what makes the world the way it is. That's the difference with science. And then testing to see if that hypothesis that you have painted actually works and makes sense and can stand up to scrutiny. And that's what we want to teach our children. That's what we want our children to grow up, at least some of them, enough of them, to grow up loving and loving that way of coming at the world which we call science. You know, Newton, when he couldn't go to Cambridge because of the epidemic that was storming the world at the time, was confined to home, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything, couldn't go to school. But his passion for analyzing and trying to understand the light coming through his window made him develop his theory of light, of gravity, of all these things, discovering that the prism could break up light into its different components and to understand what this was all about. The passion that says, look at the world there, it's around me, and I need to understand it. I need to formulate, I need to paint a picture of how it works. It is a passion that is lacking in too many of our people. It is that passion that says, look, measure, analyze, interrelate, put it together, test it. This is what scientists do. And one of the things I'm afraid of, one of the things I'm really afraid of, is that we keep on thinking that science is about ways of making more money, of generating wealth. It is about generating wealth, but what it is about generating a wealth of is a wealth of understanding, a wealth of knowledge. And the success of science will not necessarily depend on the amount of money that you make. Somebody asked the question, it was Susan who asked the question, this lurking issue of how much does a scientist make? And it immediately reminded me of what Faraday said to William Gladstone, the Prime Minister of Britain, when he was talking to this elite group about his studies of electricity and electromagnetism. And Gladstone, in a kind of snide offhand way, says, what use is that? What can you use it for? And Faraday's response was simply, I don't know, sir, but one day you'll tax it. And look what it led to. You can't think of a world without electricity now, can you? We need to embrace science as something we do because we love it, because it turns us on. It's not to satisfy people abroad or people somewhere else that we are up to the same thing as them. When, we've always had wonderful runners from pre-war days, the Spence brothers, Herb McKinley, and all these guys. We've always had great runners. But when did Jamaica flower into being the capital of sprinting? It's when G.C. Foster started producing so many good coaches that were training so many good Jamaicans right here in Jamaica. When our sprinters realized that their limits were not defined by what somebody else told them they could do, but what they could, their imaginations right here could tell them is possible. Our musicians, we have always had great musicians. We've always had musicians who excelled. I mean, even from not too long ago, you think about the Blues Busters, the Millie Smalls, made an impact on the world. But when did Jamaica flower as the musical capital almost of the world? When Jamaicans started singing about Jamaican things, when Jamaicans stopped trying to sing like the Americans or the British. That is when we flowered. You see where I'm going? If we want our science to flower and to grow like crazy so that we become a scientific capital of the world, we're going to have to start looking inward. Fiwi science. That's what it's about. We must embrace it and we must carry it forward. This is a wonderful idea. But we must not, as Conrad said, parochialize it. And we must not link it to what other people think we ought to do. We must link it to our own environment, to the things that move us, to the things that we see around us. Look at them, analyze them. I'm always impressed by a little British fellow who is sitting on his veranda, counting the trains going by and thinking about the schedule and the things that, it's just that attitude that says, look, this is something that happens right here every day. Why does it happen like that? How does it? Let me measure it, count it. Try to put it together in a form that allows me to understand it in a broader context. It's what science is about. It paints a picture of the world that is not like Van Gogh, but it's every bit as real, every bit as penetrating, and every bit as valid and important. And we don't have to always ask, what use is it? Or how much are you going to make out of it? Because if you do it right, and you do it well, one day they're going to tax it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I just need to do one other chore, and that is to say thanks to... thanks to everybody. And I believe that these people have actually been thanked already. I want to thank first of all, Susan, for pulling this thing together and doing all of this. I think you've done a wonderful job. But of course, we know that is at the impulse of the dean, who has woken up and is now trying to make the dream real. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Michael, for that. I want to thank Tanny Stevenson for her introductory remarks. Tomlin for his, he's not here now, is he? Left. Yeah, he had to go. For his introduction, which I found very interesting. Dr. Morrison from the NCST, still there, yes, thank you very much. Mrs. Bernal for that wonderful, piece there that showed all these different persons involved. Conrad, for all of your dedication to this project and beyond, and being a functioning scientist out there who is a beacon for some of our young scientists to look at. Thank you very much for that. And of course, the staff of the Dean's Office, who are very much involved in putting all of this together, okay? Student workers and all those others who assisted in getting the place looking really smart and organizing all this business, okay? I will thank in advance, and those of you who came early and were outside would have heard our keyboard artist and guitarist who were out there entertaining. Thanks very much to them. That's Dexter Colloon and Miguel Edwards. And to thank Dr. Lilith Nelson, our scientist, artist, poet, writer, singer, and all those things. And great friend from way back in the 60s. Yeah. I'm sure there are other things that I should say, but I think I've said enough. Thank you all very much. And let's hope that this will be a wonderful, great success.
Thank you so much, Prof. Young, for those motivational words. And we thank all of you for attending. I'm particularly happy to see Ministry of Education team, I don't know if Association of Science Teachers of Jamaica. Oh, wonderful to have you here, because we believe this is going to be a great resource. NEPA, Forestry, I'm probably leaving out other people, but thanks to our academics and for being here this afternoon. Mina Israel, thank you so much for coming out, and there are many of you, SRC and National Gallery and so on. We'll meet and greet outside. There is refreshment and the entertainment, and make sure you wet your lips and vocal cords, because I know that Dr. Lilith is going to be inviting you to participate as well. So you can exit this way or walk up the stairs and exit at the back. Thank you so much for participating.